that's my topic, 100 Years, Vicissitude and Zeitgeist, Political Change and Theological Reflection in Taiwan. I see Professor Huang Bohe is online here. So I have to apologize to Professor Huang. I will mention your viewpoint in just one sentence. I'm so sorry. So my question is, who am I? Where are we? This is the ultimate existential question in our belief. So what I want to share is two parts. The first part is I want to analyze historical phases in Taiwan. So I will divide it into 5 phases in the past one centuries, because this year is 100 years for Taiwan Cultural Association. It is a very important thing in Taiwan's history. So, and I will define every stages, every phases of the Zeitgeist. It is a German name, German vocabulary, means the spirit of the age. And the second part, I want to share my reflection on Taiwan's political and theological condition. So my analytical framework like this, divided into 6 parts, analytical dimensions. The first, Zeitgeist. Every stage, I give it a name, a dream. I call them, every time they have a dream map. So the first is Zeitgeist, and the second is international environment. I will put Taiwan's into a global context. And the third part is state-society relations. And from the top perspective is state power, how the state power exists, its power to the society, to the people. And the second part is social forces. Every time Taiwanese people have their idea, have their dream to fight for their dream, to fight for their idea, to resist the state, the ruling party. And next part is the role of church. I want to investigate very shortly the role of church, especially Presbyterian Church in Taiwan. We call it PCT. The first part is institutional dimension, religion-state relations. And the second part is a cultural dimension, political theology. It's very difficult. So this is my framework. It's like this, but because the content is too complicated, so I will show as follows. The first phase is like this, very difficult, but I will skip something. This time, 1920s, Taiwan is under Japanese colonial period. So in this time, Taiwanese people have 2 dreams. The first dream is the dream of self-governing. The second part is a dream of a nation. But this kind of nation, maybe we may not call it a Taiwanese nation. They just begin to think of themselves, who are themselves, and maybe Taiwanese, maybe Japanese. To quote a very famous professor in Taiwan, a nationalist professor, Wu Ruiren's idea, he says that during this time, Taiwanese people fight for their self-governing power. It is unsuccessful. So they want to be Japanese, they want to be Chinese, but these 2 dream, they can't finish these dreams. So they begin to dream themselves as a Taiwanese people. So in this time, international environment is post-World War I's decolonized movement. We can see in the Middle East world, Ottoman Empire falls, and Russia Empire falls, and Japanese empires rise. And Japan's colonial rules is extend to Taiwan. So it adopts a stimulation policy in Taiwan. And the state power to Taiwan is a stimulation policy. It's a cultural dimension. They want to assimilate Taiwanese as Japanese, and they want to cultivating Taiwanese as Japanese citizens. But this time is a very open time in Japan's domestic politics, because there is a liberal political ideas. Political parties is very active in Japan's context, and they use this open colonial rule to rule Taiwan. And in Taiwan's social society, the Taiwanese Cultural Association is founded. It's a very famous person, Jiang Weishui. We call it Dr. Sun Yat-sen in Taiwan. He's a doctor and do many things to enlighten Taiwanese people, to cultivate the Taiwanese people, to enlighten them in a very in knowledge, intellectual. And this time is a petition movement for the establishment of a Taiwanese parliament. They want to build a parliament, a delegation in Japanese colonial part in Taiwan. And the religion-state relations is nothing special, just obedience to colonial government, because many Taiwanese Christians are local elites. And especially in PCT, many local elites accept a Western education. So, and they also go to Japan to attend the top university like Tokyo University and something else. And the political theology, nothing special, just Western-centered theology, because Taiwan's PCT's theology comes from Scotland originated Protestant theology. And another thing to mention is that a non-church movement in Japan, we call it, I don't know how to, Uchimura Kanzo. It's yeah, I will skip it. And the next part is Taiwan during after World War II. Taiwan in the 1950 to 1960. In this period, the zeitgeist is perishing dream of democracy, what I call it. We may see the fourth part, social forces, because in these times, Taiwan's KMT came to Taiwan. They are defeated by the Chinese Communist Party and retreat or came to Taiwan. And the KMT restructuring a party-state system is originated from the Leninist party. Control tightly of the state machine, and led by the party. And the second part is establishment of a dual patron clientism. On the one side is the central part. Central government is controlled by the mainlanders who came from China. And the local part is controlled by the local elite. But KMT is very smart because he used divide and rule strategy to divide Taiwan's local elites to rule Taiwan. This is the state power. And the social force is very interesting because there is a very interesting alliance between KMT's intellectual elites. We call it a very famous Free China Journal. Many liberal intended intellectual from mainland China, and they want to pursue the dream of democracy. And the other part is the local elite rooted in Taiwan society. They combine together to pursue democracy, but they fail. Why they fail? Because Chiang Kai-shek oppress this democratic movement. So I call it perishing dream of democracy. A very famous elite, Lei Zheng, is put into prison. And the religion-state relations is deteriorating. During this time, Taiwan Presbyterian Church have no direct conflict with KMT's government, but KMT's government is not friendly to PCT. At the same time, PCT attend WCC, WCC. And in that time, it's a very serious question because WCC is has a cosmopolitan tendency. During the Cold War era, who want to advocate a cosmopolitan spirit can be attributed to a communist camp. So this time, religion-state relations is deteriorating. And the political theology, I divided into two parts. The first part is US-originated evangelical fundamental theology. It's very difficult to explain, but it came with KMT from mainland China. We say that mainlanders, they came here and to build some church like Methodist church and something else. And PCT ecumenism has a very close ties with WCC. So that the next phase is Taiwan in 1970s and 1980s. The dream, I call it the dream of freedom, not the dream of democracy, just freedom. Why I say that? Because in this time, Taiwan's international status experienced a shift. The first one is a U.S. strategic shift, because the United States want to contain Soviet Union, so it want to seek the aliens in the world, and the second great power is China, and the China. So an American go to United China to contain Soviet Union, and the second part is China's representation in the United Nations. It's very famous in 1971. It's a very it's a great trauma for Taiwanese people, because someone say that ROC status is replaced with PRC. It's the regime. The one regime is replaced with the other. So, and the shift of the international status is the rising China and the falling Taiwan. So, accompany this, Jiang Jingguo's regime do something, releasing the political power to consolidate its internal legitimacy, because the outer external legitimacy is falling. So it have to do something to consolidate its internal legitimacy. What it did, open the limited parliamentary by-election. So in Taiwan's situation, compared to the same times China, China is a very totalitarianism, and Taiwan, sometimes if election came, we have a limited free speech time. So and the social force, how did it do? We call it outside the party movement, 党外运动, to oppose one-party dictatorship, to oppose to 国民党. And the purpose of the outside party, the latter Democratic Progressive Party, to pursue democracy and Taiwan independence. On the one side is democracy, on the other side is nationalism, to combine to the same movement. And attaining the goal, what the goal? The political liberalization. We have to notice that liberalization is different from democratization. Liberalization, just social forces is loosened. And what is the religion-state relations is very intense, because in this time, PCT proposed three very famous official statements, which encompasses the following values. It's very complicated. So I say human rights, political reforms, and the national self-determinations to remind the KMT to do some political reforms. And in this time, political theology is very, very complicated. But just one thing to say, a very famous Reverend Shoki Ko in Britain, and who influenced Desmond Tutu's idea of South Korea's liberation. It's a theology of contextualization. He said, we have to read the Bible in the contextualization, not to read it through the past perspective, but through the future perspective, to the now perspective. That's the importance of the Shokiko. And the next phase, I think in Taiwan in the 1990s, I call it the dream of constitutionalism. 宪政梦. China has the same thing in the 2010, but perished. And in this time, international environment is economic globalization, that's economic liberalization and political authoritarianism. And that's China. And the post-Tiananmen China, yes, economic liberalization and political authoritarianism. And the second thing to say is U.S. foreign policy toward China to integrating China into world trade system. Bill Clinton government say that we have to decoupling human rights issues from the trade issues. So that's the original problems of now the China's authoritarianism can spread into the world. And the other thing to say is Taiwan's foreign policy in Li Denghui's rule is pragmatic diplomacy, very complicated. And I might skip something. During this time, important thing to say is that Li Denghui, former President Li Denghui's Machiavellian moment, he's very smart to manipulate multiple power struggle, because during the 1990s, it's a very active times in Taiwan. Many social forces rise, and many power struggle inside KMT's political party, and another DPP is growing. So President Li Denghui used this to finish Taiwan's constitutional and political reform. Another thing to say is that Lili student movement, aliens of opposing social forces, nothing special. But in Taiwan's religion-state relations, PCT plays a very great part in the opposing forces. They cultivate or help to develop democratic theology to resist the ruling party, and criticizing authoritarian regime and demanding a democracy and sovereign autonomy. In the political theology, so sorry, Professor Huang Bohe is here. Just one sentence, theology of self-determination, but it's very interesting. He uses the theology of transplantation to read Genesis to correspond to our situation in Taiwan's 1990s. Yeah.
Just to say, you have a little less than a minute.
Okay. Just 3 minutes. Yeah. This
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. This part is from 2000 until now. We can see a dream of equality and dream of autonomy. It's after Taiwan's democratic consolidation, and our challenge is to make a more equal in the economic and social justice dimension. And this time, theology is very important. My friend Cho Kai-Li in Taiwan's theological seminary say that in the past the few decades, Taiwan's political theology is always surrounded nationalist discourse. We have to reflection on it, to think about the possibility of liberation from this nationalist discourse. We have to notice our not self-determination, but self-awakening theology, to cultivate our mind to become more civilized modern citizens. And there's no much time. So thank you for your attention.